So step one in getting a site hosted on GitHub is creating a GitHub account. This is, of course, if you don't already have one, and it's always a good idea if you want to learn how to code to get a GitHub account. So simply just, pick a username, your email, your password, and you'll probably have a few other prompts to go through after that. And then when you're done, you'll have an account. So when you finally get into your GitHub account and you have it up and running, it's going to look something like this. Now, don't worry if it doesn't look exactly the way mine does. Essentially, this is kind of comparable, I'd say, to a news feed, showing different people I follow on GitHub and their activity. These are some repositories that I contribute to, and then of course all of my own repositories, ones that I have forked and ones I'm a part of, and pretty much just everything. And your GitHub profile will look something like this. At the time of this recording, this is what the GitHub Pages website looks like. If you scroll down, they have some very helpful directions. I refer to these quite a lot, almost every time I were to make a new GitHub page. Now, for someone who's not very familiar with GitHub, off the bat, there could be some confusion. So essentially, you have these two options, user or organization site, or then project site. And the directions for each of those actually differs. So I'm going to try to explain what the difference is as best I can. So this page right here is an example of a GitHub project page. A project site. Okay, that's the correct terminology. So this is a little something I made. I was playing around a bit ago with a jQuery plugin. It's just a little quiz. If you visit this URL, you can, find it if you're interested. So notice up here with the URL, it's laurence.bradford.github.io/WP quiz. And that correlates with my WP quiz repository. So again, this is an example of a project site. And you can see I have this named GitHub Pages, and essentially all of this information is being pulled onto this GitHub page, and it correlates with the repository name. On the other hand, the user or organization site, you're only allowed to have one, correct? And with these, the project sites, you can have multiple. So I have more than just this. I have more than just the WP quiz. A few of my other repositories are also project sites. So the URL for the organization page, or my organization page, would be this, laurence.bradford.github.io. And if you go there, you'll see there's a 404 error. And that's because I never set one up. I don't have one of these, set up yet. I don't have a personal GitHub page that's not affiliated with a project. So what I'm going to do is set this up. Now, keep in mind, just think about your purposes and what you're trying to achieve, because maybe setting up a project site would be better. That's why I kept doing them in the past, because I wanted my different repositories to be on their own URL, if you understand what I'm trying to say. So I wanted I didn't want my WP quiz, for instance, to be associated with laurence.bradford.github.io. I wanted it on its own URL separate. Okay, so now what you want to do is create a new repository. And this is very important. As it explains in the directions, when doing your user site, the repository name has to be exactly your username. Otherwise, it will not work. So mine would be laurence.bradford.github.io. Okay? Okay, so the description is just for the purposes of GitHub, so you can, I guess, give information to people that may be interested in knowing what the repo is about. So I'll just put my user site. Public is what you have to check unless you want to do private, which costs money. I do not have an upgraded account, so I'll be doing public, which is fine. I don't care if people see this. And this is optional. Typically, I actually don't do this because I want to get started just completely fresh when I bring all the files in. So I'm just going to press click create repository. Okay, and what's really awesome is that they give you some directions here on how to then bring your files, so in this case your HTML and your CSS, over to this repository, so it'll then show up on the site. Okay, so let's switch gears for a second. Here's a folder I already have set up with a main.css and an index.php, .html file. I want to pull these into my text editor so you can see. Okay, so very simple. I just have, my name is Laurent, so thank you for visiting my site, and some CSS. And I have my site folder with the HTML and CSS files located conveniently on my desktop. So there are a few ways you can bring your site contents into GitHub. You can do so through your terminal, which is what I'm going to be doing. If you're on a Windows machine, there's special directions for Windows machines. There's also the GitHub for Mac, which is an application you can install. And then I guess, I don't know, they tell you to do the GitHub for Mac. So again, I'm going to be doing mine through the terminal, and I am on a Mac, so I will be using the Mac terminal. First things first, we have to open our terminal. There's a few ways you can do this. You can type it into your Spotlight search, press enter, and a new terminal window will open. I have mine saved already on my dock. Okay, so two ways to get into the correct folder where the website files are located. I'm going to do the more challenging one, I guess you could say. It's really not that challenging though, first, and then I'll show you the easy way. So if I do press ls, which means list, what is appearing are all the files or folders that are located in this directory. And the directory that I'm in is just my main user directory, Laurence Bradford. So where I want to go, right, is the desktop. So I'll simply type cd, which means current directory, desktop. I press enter. And now you can see how it's sort of changed, right? It says desktop. And that's because I am now located on my desktop rather than in my user directory. So if I press ls again, which means list, it's going to list all of my files and folders that are located on the desktop, which is quite a lot. So similarly, like I did before, I can press or type cd, which means current directory, and then the name of the folder, my GitHub site, which, right, it's right up there, my GitHub site. Okay, enter. And there's an error because I spelled it wrong. So cd my GitHub, spelled it wrong again, GitHub site. Okay, so now you can tell by the path or by the text, right, that I'm in the my GitHub site folder. Just to show you, I can do ls, which means list, and it shows me the two files that are inside, main.css and the index.html. Okay, so that's one way of doing it. The other way, let's get a new terminal window, This, I guess you could say, is the easier way. Ooh, a little big there. So I'll just type cd, right, current directory, and then take my folder on my desktop and drag it into the terminal. What this does is just, it pretty much literally spells out the path of the location of this folder. So then just press enter, and you can see how it changes as my GitHub site. Let's list ls, see what the file contents are, index and main, again, matching. Oops. Doesn't like when I do that. Yay! Main.css, main.css, index.html, index.html. All right, so following the directions, git init. So basically you're, as it says, initializing an empty Git repository. This is always what you want to do. Okay. Git add period. So git add is essentially saying I want to add all of my files that are in this folder, and there are only 2 here. So I can type git status. Git status, okay, is saying, right, changes to be committed, index, main.css. So that's, git status is just kind of showing you, again, like the status of what is going on. It's saying, hey, these are these 2 new files, right, index and main. So they're ready. They're changes that are going to be committed then. And again, the directions are loosely here, or I mean, they're very good here. Except I'm not adding a README file. I could have done that, but you know, it's all good. This is for an empty folder that doesn't have any files in it. I already have 2 files, so I didn't necessarily have to do the README. But it's good to add a README. Okay, so we did the git add, now git commit. This is committing the changes that will then be pushed to GitHub. The -m that you see right there is saying message. So that is a message that you are putting with your commit. First commit. Typically, whenever it's your first commit, you just do your first message as first commit. But in the future, when you're committing new changes to your files, you would want to name the commit that in a way that reflects the changes that you made. So say you added an image in your footer. You would maybe then you do a message footer image, or added footer image, you know, or maybe, you know, added new style.css. Something that's descriptive. That's best practice. Okay, so git commit m first commit, enter. Again, don't really worry about this stuff. And now what we want to do is copy and paste this. That's the easiest way to go about it, because that's quite a long URL. So this is only when you are first setting up the Git with your folder where your website is located. You would do the remote add origin, and it gives you this kind of gives you the URL. So this is not every time you make changes. This is just the first time. Oops, I did not copy, paste. Okay. Again, I just copy and pasted that line. Enter. Nothing happened. That's good. Nothing was supposed to happen. And now is where the magic happens. Again, I'm just going to copy and paste this. Now the git push means you're pushing the changes to GitHub. Okay. you can read through the message that it sort of spits out, but basically it's saying, again, if you're not familiar with GitHub, and I'm not some expert at GitHub by any means, you have different branches of your repository. This is, the master branch. That's kind of like the automatic branch that gets set up, and that's usually the main one. But you can add additional ones. So say like if different people are working on a project, different people could be doing different things in the code at once, working on different branches. Again, if you're a beginner, don't worry about it. Okay, so I'm going to refresh this now. Okay, so I just refreshed that page we saw before, and you can see right now it's not very exciting. But if we click here, the contents of my index.html file, the contents of my main.css file. First commit, remember that was the message that I put when I committed the changes that we're going to be going to GitHub. Okay, so that seemed to have worked. Okay, so this, again, the dashboard before, showing the repository laurencebradford.github.io. I tested it out to make sure it worked, and it did. If you go to the site, laurencebradford.github.io, this is what shows up. And just to show you, right, this is my folder from before. Oh, wait. For some reason, my Chrome acts up. So this is my local version that I just pulled in, index.html, and this is the site on GitHub. So that's it. That's how you get a site onto GitHub Pages.